All right. What we're going to talk about right now is interest groups a little bit more and some of the kind of issues and features of interest groups, not necessarily the the ways in which they engage, because we did that yesterday with this. Okay. But more like some of the concerns about them, what makes them effective, what makes them less effective, and so on and so forth. So an interest group, if we remember, is an organization that seeks to shape policy. There are different kinds. There are social justice interest groups. There are economic interest groups. There are all kinds. There are interest groups for everything, for education, for big oil, for you name it. And what that leads to is actually an influence on politics that politicians and political scientists debate over. And there are actually four theories of kind of the impact that interest groups and people in general have on politics to make things either work better or work better for some and not for others. So we're going to start with those four. The first theory is called the pluralist theory. All right. So the pluralist theory states that because there are multiple interest groups advocating for and forming policy, helping form policy for different groups, that those groups means that it maximizes the number of people that get represented in government, and it maximizes kind of the amount of stuff we get from government. Everybody gets what they want, and these groups competing provide a check on each other and produce legislation that is measured, balanced, and is as effective as possible for everyone. Notice the skepticism in my voice as I was saying that. All right, the next theory is called hyperpluralism. Hyperpluralism is kind of the same idea but taken to an extreme. That there are so many interest groups pushing so hard on politics that nothing gets done, because any legislation you try to make or anything like that would actually end up offending some interest group or another, so they block it and they prevent it from getting done. That's kind of the theory of hyperpluralism. This one, I don't know about you, and this is the point in which I would turn to the class and say, what do you think? This feels a little more to me like reality. But anyway, the next one is what's called elite class theory. And what that means is that the groups of people who have a lot of influence, the handful of elites, either wealthy or influential or whatever, they get what they want in society, and they basically run government, even though we have a democracy, that they wouldn't really care about that they have more authority, they have more power, they have more sway, that one of the people in this group has effectively more votes than me, because even though we each get one vote, they can influence a number of other votes, and they can spend money on candidates and whatever. Yeah, anyway, the idea that there's a group of elites. There's a couple different forms this takes, and we could branch this out into a couple different subgroups, like the theory of what's called a shadow government. The idea that there's a handful of people in Washington that are actually making all the decisions and have all the power behind the scenes. There's just the idea of like, the thing that Citizens United kind of opened the door for, which is that large donors get what they want. There's a number of different theories, but we're not going to do that right now. And the last one is what's called participatory. And this one is not in your book. What's wrong, Tony? Participatory. Having a day. Participatory theory, which is the idea that those that actually engage, those that participate, those that go out and do things, get what they want. And while the government is supposed to exist to support and help everyone, it's really the people that make a nuisance out of themselves that get what they want at the expense of others. This is really easy to see when looking at, say, for example, voter groups. We know that there's more young people ages 18 to 30 in America than any other group, more or less. But they hardly ever get what they want in government because they don't participate. They don't go out and vote. They don't have their voice heard and even the primaries, we thought, oh, maybe because of the last couple elections, this has changed. And in the Democratic primaries, there was low voter turnout rates, terrible voter turnout rates amongst the youth. Whereas old people, retired people, they turn out in record numbers. So they get what they want. They get policies that are tailored for them. That they get what they care about. That's it. Anyway, so that's kind of the theory, and I'll let you decide which of those four you believe in. But in truth, the last time I saw this on the AP test, and it's going to be on the AP test, but last time I saw it was actually the free response essay, in which they had you argue which of these do you think is the most accurate in describing American democracy, and you had to pick one, come up with two arguments in favor of, and then pick another one and argue against that one as your third paragraph. So I can link that to you when we do a group chat or something like that, and you can look at it. All right, back to this. All right, interest groups have actually, within any interest group, there are two important kind of crowds. We call the potential group and then the actual group. The potential group for any interest group is defined as anyone that would benefit from the work of that interest group, anyone that kind of falls under that umbrella. So, for example, if you take the NRA, which is a really good example for pretty much everything we're doing, the NRA's potential group is anyone who's a gun owner. If you look at the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, that interest group, the potential group is, generally speaking, minority groups. Anyone that was covered in, if you remember, our Chapter 5 group. So minorities, disabled, whatever, that kind of stuff. The ACLU would be their potential group. Emily's List, the potential group would be women. Or potentially even fathers of young girls who would like to see, like myself, their work pay off. And then if you take something like Greenpeace, their potential group is basically everyone on the planet. The actual group, however, are the number of people within this potential group that actually do any work, that do any contribution towards the interest group. So they're registered members, people that go out and knock on doors. So, for example, the NRA, if they've got, 3-5 million people, I don't know how much they have, but most of them are members of the NRA. You get an NRA card, you pay for it, and that gives you something called selective benefits, which we'll get to in a second. But anyway, the actual group are the actual people working to advance the cause. And this is the one that matters. And what we find out is large interest groups, Emily's List, Greenpeace, big interest groups that have large potential groups tend to have small actual groups, and they are less effective. They don't get things done. And the reason why is something called Olson's Law. It's actually, here, we'll get back to that. Here's the way it works. If you are, if you benefit from the work of Emily's List in getting protections for women in terms of wages or whatever else you want, abortions, domestic violence protections, whatever. If you benefit from those things, which is more than half the population, and you don't have to do anything to get those benefits, their work benefits you whether you contribute or not. Large groups get changes in policy made that affect large groups of people. And if that's going to be the case, then there's no benefit to actually giving money to that group as an individual. There's no, because you get the stuff for free. It's called the free rider problem. In econ, we actually called it spillover benefits. When somebody else does the work and you benefit from it, you are less likely to input, to do the work. That's the issue. So if we benefit from the work of Greenpeace, because everybody does, we're less likely to contribute. We're less likely to be active members because whatever they accomplish, we're going to get no matter what. So we're not going to contribute. On the opposite side, if the group offers either the benefits they work for, if they only apply to members, people are more likely to be active members, and they'll get what they want. Again, ACLU, Greenpeace, much bigger groups than the NRA. However, the NRA is way more effective in getting what they want. In fact, the NRA controls conservative politics. You don't get to be a Republican candidate that holds office without the support of the NRA. And the reason is because the NRA's potential group and actual group are almost the same. The NRA sells or subscription to you can get an NRA card. It gives you access to a bunch of things, including firing ranges that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, discounts, things like that. There's a benefit to contributing money to the NRA. So the people give so the NRA, people give money to the NRA, and then they get benefits from it. And so the NRA is able to use that money and that engagement, that connection to its group to mobilize. If the NRA says, hey, we need to protest, they'll show up because they're all connected to the NRA through these benefits that they're receiving. Another good one is ARP, American Association of Retired People. When you turn 65, you get this card from ARP, and then if you want to have, like, if you have to kind of pay a subscription, or at least you're a member. If you're a member of ARP, you get discounts at restaurants. You get discounts all over the place. You get this newsletter. You get a bunch of different things with your ARP card, but you're a member. That membership makes you feel like you have more invested in their work, and you will be more likely to contribute financially, physically, if you whatever, and you're more likely to pay attention to the issues that they're working for and work for them yourself, which is why retired people get what they want, but young people don't, because they're highly organized and they mobilize as a group, and this facilitates that and the voter turnout. Whereas, again, Greenpeace, their potential group and actual group are nowhere near each other. And so this number is everyone, and this number is very few people, because honestly, if they're doing work to make the environment better, to make air cleaner, it's not like only the people that donated get clean air and everybody else gets smoggy air. If they do work making the air more pure, clean, whatever, everybody's going to benefit. So why contribute if I'm going to get the benefit anyway? It's again, in econ we call it the spillover benefit. All right, we're going to cut it there though because we're running a little bit over. So there'll be more videos soon.